Goedenavond allemaal. Welkom bij een speciale Nederlands editie van Topdeck. Editie van Topdeck. Ik ben Jaggerous en ik ben hier met Swim. Vandaag zijn onze gasten Ashlizzle en Lbdutchboy. Or I guess that would be like Nederlands jongen.
Oh, nee. Nee, niet doen.
Nee, doe maar niet.
Swim looks so confused.
I feel like I've missed some inside joke over here.
This is the special Dutch edition of Topdeck, so I kind of butchered the Dutch language a little bit there.
That was fine.
You actually did amazing. I'm just saying, you did amazing.
Yeah, I don't even speak Dutch, and I understood every word you said.
Yeah, come on. Like,
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, though.
But yeah, good evening, guys. Welcome to Topdeck. I'm joined by Swim, and our guests today are Ashlizzle and Lbdutchboy.
Yo, what's up?
So, I guess introduce yourselves to the chat. We'll start with Ashlizzle. So, if people don't know who you are, then now is your chance to tell them.
I'm Ashlizzle. I'm a streamer for Topdeck and also a fanatic Skellige fan. So, and Dutch as well. So this is a great Dutch stream. Goedenavond iedereen.
See? And Lbdutchboy?
Surprise, I'm Dutch too. It's
No
kind of
way.
the name. And I've recently been in the Gwent Open, made it to the semifinals and lost to the eventual winner, Hana-chan. And played card games for about 5 years now, competitively, so, you know, the usual.
The usual. I mean, is it really bad? Like, if you lose to the guy who won, then it's not so bad.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Was that your first tournament?
For Gwent, yes. I mean, like, I played in the Gwent Slam qualifiers, but not any other big tournament.
And so your first, like, LAN experience?
No, not like that, because I made it through some other Hearthstone qualifiers and went to London and China and Ukraine and all that, and had some other experiences there. Yeah.
Which one was your favorite?
Well, it's kind of hard because I always wanted to go to China, and I actually was able to get a paid visit to China through Hearthstone, so that was kind of awesome for me. I was actually also able to get my dad to the event on my expenses because I was still 17 and I needed some kind of parent or guardian, so that was kind of awesome. But I also really liked London because that was my first big tournament, and I was 15 then. And I just went on my trip to London in the weekends and made like $1,000 or something, which was pretty awesome for a 15-year-old.
Yeah, it's not
That's
too
impressive.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh man, now I wanna become a pro just so I can go to places. I feel like if you ever want to travel, just get really good at card games.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. I've been able to travel every year to even outside of Europe, so that's pretty good.
This is the real reason he competes. He actually hates Gwent with a passion.
It's not yet, at least.
Right, so should we talk about Open a little bit? Do you want to talk about your experience? Like, how was it traveling for Open, and how was CDPR, and how was the venue, and I guess all that side of things? Because, you know, a lot of people don't get to go, so.
Just a simple question to start off with, I guess. So it's actually kind of cool. We went there Wednesday already. I did some interviews on Thursday, but it was freezing out there, so we actually went to the headquarters already, which was really cool to see. They have like all these types of art and like swords hanging on the walls, and like a huge roach art from the Witcher 3 game, as well as just meeting the players and the casters, which was great. When I was playing Hearthstone, there was often a lot of competition between the players, and the top guys weren't as easy to get to and talk to. But this was very, like, the atmosphere was really friendly. You could just talk to everyone. We were actually practicing with each other, as long as we were not opponents, of course, and we could just talk with them all day, which was great.
I think, like, the Gwent community in general kind of feels that way. Like, everyone seems pretty chill. I would say you don't really have much drama. I mean, other than like Reddit.
Yeah, just don't go to Reddit and you're good.
Yeah. I was about to say.
But like, even the
Jaggerous,
Reddit drama.
what Gwent community have you?
Well, no, but the drama's not real drama. Like, people complain about how the board looks. Like,
Free Busak, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good example.
Oh man, but I don't know. I think the Gwent. Okay, the people in the Gwent community in general are quite chill. Do the people on Reddit count as people?
Jaggerous. Oh my God, Jaggerous. Oh.
We should go back to Dutch, because then we can just trash talk everyone and no one will understand.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
just swear in Dutch. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So how's your Dutch?
I'm like 1/16 Dutch.
Really?
Maybe, I don't know.
So your great
It's definitely possible.
Parents?
Somewhere along the way. I don't know. I don't do fractions so well.
Anyway, let's talk some more about Gwent. So end of season, we got new season. We didn't get any balance changes. We haven't really seen any. There's no balance changes. There's no new cards. But we got Scoia'tael art instead of bear art because we had season of the bear. Now we have season of the elf or something.
Yeah,
the elf.
Season of elves.
I don't know. It's season of something. I mean, Ashlizzle looks really disappointed by this.
Is that season of
Yay,
elves?
another Scoia'tael. So great. Can't wait.
I mean, you can. Oh man, but you can get War Dancer as a title.
Yay!
Like, think about how triggering that is for people. People already really hate War Dancer.
Yeah. And even CDPR acknowledged it was a problem, right? Where the changes feels bad, man.
If you could make one change, if you could have one balance change right now, what would it be?
That's a good question.
I know what mine would be.
What's yours?
I would take Yavin off Brewer. That's what I would do.
Yeah, just change it back or something, or...
I mean, I think just taking Yavin off of Brewer would make that deck a little bit less frustrating. Even though it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily tier 1, and I don't mind playing against it. It's just kind of tilting when it's oh, look, here's Yavin. Oh, look, here's Cleaver. Just every single time. It's very, very consistent, and I guess that's what I find decks that are super consistent quite frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the worst thing about the coin flip, and decks that kind of abuse it so well, Brewer Yavin and Dun Banners on Hensel. It's really just how frustrating it kind of feels to play against. And I think that's a large part of the reason why they wanted to go with a solution that, maybe didn't necessarily solve the entirety of the problems, but at least didn't make it so based on RNG.
Yeah. If you know what's gonna happen and you know that you're gonna get fucked, then it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you guys? You got a change, maybe a card that frustrates you, or a feature that you don't like?
Feature.
I've got a few.
You got a few? Let it be known.
Yeah. No, I've more than I could name. No, I honestly I don't know. At the top of my head, I'm trying to think of anything specifically outstanding. I don't know. Let me come back to me. Let me go last.
All right. I already know one. We were actually talking about this yesterday in my Discord. I actually thought it would be a great change to make dumb banners go off at 25 instead of 20. I think it would give a lot of room and make them not as dangerous as they are right now, or just annoying. I'd say just a bit less, just with Igni that happened. I think I like that, if anything.
Yeah, I think you could tweak them a couple points and it maybe wouldn't be as oppressive. I mean, everyone kind of BMs 1 point changes, CDPR and their 1 or 2 point balance changes, but making it just a couple points more does give you a bit more wiggle room, because the problem is with Thaler or Taylor or whatever his name is, as soon as they play him, it's right, where is I don't have a 3-point play in my hand. So, so I'm basically
unless you got a War Dancer, I mean.
I think I once mandraked myself in order to not trigger them. I was I'm just,
oh god,
no, you're not getting your done batters. And it was
anything to make him not come out.
Pretty much. I can understand the frustration. They're similar with War Dancer. People are annoyed by those cards. War Dancer is annoying because there's nothing you can do and you don't necessarily know that it's coming. At least with carryover Olgierd or Barbagaz, that you know about it and you have a chance to deal with it. You can try and lock it or you can kill it or what have you. But War Dancers, it's nope, they just mulligan it and it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, you made it easy, right? War Dancer is a good card to change, and they have a lot of options with it. They can just make it so that you can only mulligan it during the round, and maybe give it some extra points. So mulliganing it away with Fright Officer would actually be good, because at the moment it's kind of shitty with 11 points. But as soon as it becomes 5 points, it's a 15-point play, which is actually great for bronze plus thinning.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also still make it 4 points or still 3 points and give it resilience if you mulligan it, let's say. So that you know that you're going to get fucked by it. Or you can at least remove it and just deny the whole problem with card advantage.
Yeah. I kind of like the suggestion of it kind of flipping up after one turn, the same way that Vreehead Sappers does, basically. So like it comes out face down and then it flips up after one turn. This would also potentially be kind of cute in an ambush deck. Obviously, we know that ambushes is something we've seen in a while. We know that a lot of cards from the upcoming expansion that the art has been revealed from are going to be like kind of dryads, and we know that dryads and ambushes already have some synergy with stuff like Brayan and some of the dryads being ambushes, like more in Forest Child and Moran. So I think that it's a cool opportunity to not just solve the card, but potentially help push a little bit of ambush synergy in a way.
Yeah.
It has to be more points then, though, because otherwise it's gonna be shit. No one
Yeah,
cares
yeah,
about
no,
3
it
points out of
could
nowhere
be
for your
it could easily
mulligan.
be like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I don't know about
breaking
5. Maybe
breaking
4.
it is too hard.
Yeah,
Breaking a 3-pointer is basically losing the game.
yeah, absolutely.
How do we feel about Moran Forest Child now in Arena? Like when I first saw her, I was like, she's pretty terrible. But I've seen her a couple times in Arena, and she can really mess up your, a lot of your silver. So often you draft like alchemy cards, like the Runestones or Monster's Nest and stuff. And because there's often a long round 3, if you just hold on to her, play the long round 3, play her right at the start, you're denying one of their special cards.
Yeah.
And their special cards typically are a lot of points, because if you're drafting special cards, you're drafting them because they're really strong. So I actually think she's not as bad as I thought she was.
Yeah, she's definitely pretty usable in Arena. There's a lot of cards that just because Arena ends up kind of being what Gwent would be if there was 1 round instead of 3, that kind of makes those cards a lot better. Like I was playing earlier and I was using Ulfhedden. That's another card that is like, I mean, it can kind of be played in X-Men. It's on the brink, but it's pretty bad in general. But in Arena, it kind of, has a time of it because it's kind of just 1 round.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I guess, interesting to look at Arena meta versus current meta. Current meta, like, I don't really know. We've had 0 card changes. I mean, CDPR have announced that they're going to show off a roadmap for Gwent next week, but this does imply that CDPR knows where they're trying to go. So, I mean, how useful is this map really going to be?
Well, the map will help them. It'll tell them where they're going.
I mean, no, in all seriousness, like, I think it'll be exciting to see. People have said that the reason it's been so slow is because they had a change in the game's like lead developer, or whatever. Rethas is no longer there, and we now have what's her name? I can't remember. I think she used to be the art director.
Cassia.
Yeah. So we have a new director, and I guess when you take over, you want to make your own mark. So it's likely that happens so that the direction that Gwent was going would change, and that's maybe slower. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think that the thing is, like, what also ended up happening is that they kind of made arena mode, right? Like, they had been working on arena mode for kind of the 2 months since the midwinter update, right? And then for those of us that like didn't end up in like playing the arena mode an absolute ton, which is most of us, because even those that played it, didn't play it like all the time, then now it feels like we're waiting even longer for like an actual balance update, because just now they're starting to work on like the new batch of cards.
I mean, as a pro ladder player and someone that actually grinds to get the highest MMR, it's really good that there is no patch in between pro ladder seasons for once. Because in the previous seasons, you'll always get like a patch after a week of pro ladder, and everything will be fucked up if you didn't get your 1480 score with Scoia'tael, let's say.
Yeah.
But like the previous one, if you didn't get a high Scoia'tael score, with what the Morcus did, you're just so far behind. He wasn't able to get above 1400 with Scoia'tael anymore just because he didn't play it in the first month.
Yeah.
But there are 20 people that actually are able to push pro ladder that much. So
exactly. I mean, that's kind of the other thing, because it's like, I mean, it kind of you have to question at that point, like, who you're catering to, because it can be definitely bad for a game having like too long of a content drought. At the same time, I mean, the meta right now, while it is very stable, it is still one of the better metas we've seen. I think that it's very stale. Like, it's kind of one we've seen for a very long time, but it's relatively diverse, and most of the like top tier decks do actually have a pretty high skill floor, as opposed to some other windows we've seen in the past. If you guys remember the days of just like Dagon spamming, like off the first like 4 or 5 months of open beta, for example, dwarfs.
Dwarfs.
The thing with the meta is it's actually really varied at the moment. Like, Gwent is actually pretty balanced, I would say. You see Scoia'tael, you see Nilfgaard, you see Skellige, you see Northern Realms, you see monsters. Like, people can do well with kind of every faction. And I don't think it's been like that common that the factions are this like close in terms of skill level. Like, yes, there are some decks that are stronger. People say, you know, Hensel and Greatswords, for example, but that's not to say that the other factions can't compete.
Yeah. No, I mean, the faction diversity is great. Before the Midwinter update, it was at pretty much an all-time high. In fact, it was literally at an all-time high. After the Midwinter update, it was a problem because, like, dwarfs were forcing a lot of things just out of the meta and kind of overtaking everything for a small period of time. When that got toned down, a lot of things that just kind of didn't see play at all, like Death Wish monsters, were able to, like, be a lot more viable. And that felt a lot better. I don't know. The meta itself is, like, it's in a good spot. It's just in the same spot it's been in for way too long. That's all.
Yeah. Well, Swim, it's up to you to invent a new meta. Just get another great deck in there, and you know.
As long as it's not
Another
something
great deck.
hand buffy, because I hate those.
Oh god. Oh god.
What, like Nilfgaard Handbuff? How do we feel about that? That's a kind of newish deck.
I don't know. I'm always annoyed playing against it.
Yeah. Same.
It's just annoying to play against. It's also like I haven't played a single game with it, but playing the deck would also be the most boring thing ever, I think. Because you just play 20 points, 20 points, 20 points, 20 points, 20 points. And it's
Another
like
20.
That's literally the pinnacle of Gwent gameplay, though.
Oh god.
just spam points. I don't care.
Damn.
I go 2 cards down into the last round, but I have 25-point bronzes, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Dude. It's the ultimate Siri Nova deck. Every card in your deck is Siri Nova.
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean,
yeah.
like, fuck.
Yeah, but you know what keeps that deck in check? Slave Driver, everyone's favorite card. Like that's the solution is like play alchemy, I guess. But like that's not really a great solution either because you know who wants to play alchemy?
I mean, alchemy is good as a deck. It's just the slave driver mechanic is super triggering to play against and play as.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially as great swords. I find slave drivers are possibly one of the worst. Like I don't play a lot of great swords, but I think I tried it out like yesterday or the day before that because I had to climb a bit. I got my first match immediately alchemy. The guy had a better great sword than me. Round one.
Exactly. Like, get beaten by your own game plan. And
Don't,
that
you don't
Yeah,
play a lot of
you
great
do.
swords?
No, actually, no.
What do you play a lot of in Skellige?
Veterans, veterans mostly. I mean, I don't know. I just never
yes.
had any success with great swords for some reason. I just think I can't play them or something. I don't know. So,
Veteran
been
notes are
haunting-
much cooler anyway.
You mean
Exactly.
like, you don't like a deck that can kill your engines and also make its own copies of your engines? Like, I don't understand. Why don't you like this? Like, I don't know. Slave drivers are a bit ridiculous.
The slave drivers are annoying, but it's good that there are some ways to kill off engines in the game, because otherwise it would just literally be solitaire. Playing
Mhm.
against alchemy is so much different than playing against prover, let's say. Just because they kill all your engines if they play it properly.
Yeah.
And like, it feels good. It feels really good if you win with great swords against alchemy, because it feels like you're the underdog.
I think you are.
So-
Like in that matchup, you kind of are. They just kill all your stuff, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty tough.
Especially since Hannah-chan played Medic and everyone started just copying it. So even if you get that one big greatsword, you're gonna get fucked anyway. Because they have that big greatsword now.
Yeah.
Oh man, Graveyard Grief. But Graveyard Grief is so satisfying. Like if you're against the great swords and you're playing like you have Osril and Caretaker or something, or if you're playing, I guess the Vicar of Arrows work as well. But when you're in that situation, you're like, hey, see, you've made that great big great sword. Would it be a shame if I like just took it from you?
It's mine now.
So I really love doing that, but I feel so bad for the other player. I mean, it doesn't stop me like emoting a little bit, but I inside I feel.
The ultimate
Emotes
VM.
bad,
Just a little bit of
Yeah.
emoting, not
Yeah.
just a tad,
Just
just
a
to top
casual.
me off, you know.
Check and mate.
It's
And
okay. I
gone.
use like the Phoenix. You can't understand what I'm saying anyway.
Oh, yeah, dude, it's great. I use Malorian for the same reason.
Yeah.
They can't tell if I'm BMing. The ultimate BM. I literally I don't even look at what words I'm using. I just point to a random voice line on the mouse wheel whenever anything happens. I don't even know if I'm BMing.
Oh, it feels
I mean-
good.
All the voice lines are pretty BM, to be honest. They're like the only one that's not is like damn it, except that people use it right after a good play. So it's still pretty BM.
Yeah.
But hell, it's fun.
Swim, do you want to talk about Trist, Telekinesis, and Recon?
No.
Okay, to the next section. Let's go.
We'll talk about it a little bit. So, Trist Telekinesis, as you know, recreates a bronze card from your deck. And I guess the difficulty here is similar to the problems with Ithlin, which is the strength of this gold card is entirely dependent on the strength of bronze cards. So if the bronze specials, because it can, they're all neutral. If the neutrals are, if the bronze neutrals are too strong, Triss telekinesis becomes too strong. I don't really find that she's a problem personally.
Okay, so it's the other way around. I made this comparison, and a lot of people misunderstood what I was trying to say. I made the comparison between telekinesis and Recon's relationship to Ithlin's and Tremors. In that comparison, Ithlin is not Triss. Ithlin is Recon. Recon is basically the card that ends up kind of more imposing design space than anything else. And Triss is a pretty fantastic card and doesn't really constitute a problem on her own. Basically, the only thing I was basically trying to say, and I'd actually love to hear what you guys think about this, is that the power level of Recon being ahead of... Okay, so bronze specials are intentionally designed below the power level of normal cards because they're balanced around being tutored by other things, right? But the problem is Recon, as a special card that also has a tag for example, Tactics, prevents cards from Triss Telekinesis and Elven Mercenary being often used from anything other than Recon, which in turn prevents cards like Triss Telekinesis from Elven Mercenary really existing too much as cards, right? Like if they end up printing a lot of cards with special synergies, you just play Recon because it's not really a special. It's a unit that gives you thinning and access to like more synergies in your deck.
So your issue is with Recon.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it kind of limits the abilities of other specials to see play. That's kind of the idea. And
I get it. So you're saying like you don't mind what Recon does specifically, but you dislike that it's on a special. So like Emissary, for example, is fine because it's attached to a body and you can't tutor it with cards that interact with specials such as Elven Merc and Triss Telekinesis. But previously you could use Elven Merc into Clear Skies into Rally. Yeah. You just didn't have a choice. So like,
yeah.
Is your issue just with the fact that
even way back then that was competitive. Yeah, the choice represents a really big deal, especially like with most decks. Like there's a lot of Great Swords decks running like Triss Telekinesis, for example, and without that choice, you can get like much brickier situations, which obviously makes a huge difference. But I mean, it's just about the power level of spells being lower than units, and Recon being a unit that just has the spell tag. That's all. Like for example, imagine it this way: there's basically every tag that's attached to a bronze unit that's able to tutor that tag, right? For example, Vikovara Novice pulls alchemy cards. They can never print a bronze card like that at that power level, 2 or 3 points, that pulls tactics cards, because Recon is just at a higher power level than the others. And it does hurt the viability of cards that treat special cards all as the same category, like Elven Merc and Telekinesis. It hurts like being able to print too many of those cards.
I see what you're saying. I find Recon is kind of... I mean, I guess it fits quite nicely into a lot of what's called Nova decks. Like I feel like that's almost why it exists, was to kind of fill up some Nova spots.
Yeah.
But then what do you do? Like how do you fix it in synergy with cards that tutor specials? So Elven Merc and Triss Telekinesis. Like what do you... Because you don't want to change the card completely that it's not usable in other situations.
There's a few different solutions. I could honestly see it being potentially fine if it showed you like one card face up and one card face down, which is something that Gwent had a few cards that did back in the day. Like way back in the day, there was like Stennis and Priscilla and Taller, which did stuff like that. I don't know. I honestly think it would still be pretty good, but I don't know. It depends exactly how they want to resolve the situation. It's just something that's kind of hurting the ability for other special cards to kind of see play. And that's something like when you're going through the collection, you really end up noticing, right? Because you're just scrolling through and there's just this block of these bronze neutral cards that you're just like, what are these?
I mean, a lot of them aren't great though, in fairness.
Exactly.
Like
no,
Brazilian Adrenaline Rush
Yeah.
isn't great.
Yeah.
But like, is your point not necessarily that Recon is too strong as the other ones are bad? Or do you think Recon is so strong that even if they made the other ones better, Recon would still be the best?
Both.
Okay, I think that's fair. I mean, I think part of the way they got around some of the problems with bronze specials was, using like the item tag and the spell tag and the tactic tag, such that certain cards can't access certain specials. And maybe that could be the solution here, is look at the tags and look at how... But then you'd have to, you can't really have every special card except Recon. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I mean, there's not a lot you can do. There's actually one very interesting thing they can do. It's something I was talking with Shinmiri about. And he ended up agreeing with me, I think, that it was a good idea moving forward if they'd be willing to do it. And that is basically, we decided that Recon was kind of a healthy card, because it does promote synergies. It does promote decks that kind of rely on a core set of bronzes, like archetypal ones. Like, for example, I don't know, something like Great Swords. Probably not the best example, but you get the idea, like a type bronze package. But at the same time, it is kind of balanced higher than a spell should be. So I was basically asking him what he thought if, instead of a special, they just made it a 0 strength unit that basically just died immediately when it got played. And I don't know, there's definitely problems with that solution, and I can see why they might not want to do that. They might just not want to ever print a 0 strength unit, but it's kind of an interesting idea.
Does anyone else have any opinions?
Like, 0 strength units are just way too confusing, man. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, that might just like confuse new players
Like,
too much.
can't you just make it a spell then without any of the special tags or being able to get tutored or anything? Isn't that just the same?
Without a special tag?
Yeah, like just make it a card that says spell and not be able to get pulled by Merc, anything at all. Like, 0 stat units are weird, especially if you get like Dragoons and stuff like that going.
You can Ithlin into 2 units?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just confusing playing units that die.
Yeah.
It feels weird. I would just remove the special tag then and just make it not be able to get pulled by Merc. If I wanted to fix it. Like,
that's definitely an alternative solution.
Because people are also, at least I have tried to, but I didn't really like it. People also play it in Nova Deathwish or just Deathwish in general. Because, like, the package still works really well with each other. Except that the Foglet Scar is somewhat annoying sometimes. But, like that, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter as long as you don't tutor it in any way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, untutorable.
Yeah, you could
like
do that.
Some kind of new tag. I don't actually mind that as a tag that certain cards exist but can't be drawn with other cards. Like, that's not... You know, we have Doomed and stuff so that cards don't go to the graveyard. I don't see the harm in having a tag that stops a card getting pulled from the deck by other cards. Although, then how do you kind of define that? Because what about stuff like Dijkstra? Can Dijkstra pull Recon?
I mean, just remove
that is a little weird.
Just remove the alchemy tag or the special tag or whatever makes it able to get pulled by other units.
Well, it's just because it's a special and certain cards can pull every special. But then if you start limiting their pool, then that kind of is a whole other
I mean,
kind of
it's
kettle
like
of fish. It's difficult. And you don't want to just remove cards, because I think removing cards is really bad for a card game,
no.
you know.
When he
exactly.
absolutely needs a bigger card pool. Like, that's the problem that Triss has right now, I think. Triss isn't necessarily this overpowered card that's just insane. She's just 6 stats that tutors a bronze out of your deck, basically. Which is kind of comparable to Denline Poet in a way. That's 5 stat that tutors a card out of your deck, which can even be a silver or gold, which is even better. It's just that there aren't that many good gold options at the moment in most decks, so that if you're looking for a 4th slot to play, you just jam in Triss and it's good, because your bronzes synergize anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And, like, the thing is, you can't make it you don't have bronze units to begin with, but you couldn't really make it a unit anyway, because then things like Stennis and that can pull it and then chain into other units. Like, it's the same problem, but just with things that tutor units rather than things that tutor, spells. Yeah. And if you made it like a 1-strength unit, suddenly it's resurrectable within a alchemy deck, for example. Like, all the res cards like that don't have conditions can then resurrect it, and then it kind of starts its own other problem. So... Like, I don't know how you fix this. I think
you can just boost it and then strengthen it when it's on the board, and then you can pull it out of your graveyard over and over again.
Make it doomed. I don't know.
Make a 0 stat unit that's doomed, then everyone will be like, what the fuck are they doing? It already dies, man.
Yeah.
Just let it die.
No, it's like this is the thing. It's like it's an easy problem to talk about, but it's not a problem that has a simple or obvious solution.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the same thing with stuff like slave drivers. You know, they don't really have a easy solution other than make them arena exclusive. But then you're limiting the card pool again, which I still think is not like the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the card pool is in such an early state that it's dangerous to like try to limit it too much in these ways.
What we need is more cards. But fortunately, there is a roadmap coming next week.
Oh,
So
Yes!
we're gonna
that'll
find
be
out.
that will be pretty interesting to talk about for next week's talk show.
Let's make some. Yeah, we can make some predictions now, and then we'll watch
Oh.
Swim's reaction. If he goes like this, then that means he knows something that he's not telling us. See, I think the big announcements will probably be at Challenger, so I don't know how much they can say now. Like, is this an announcement of a roadmap? And then the roadmap's like, oh, we'll announce more at Challenger. And it's like an announcement of an announcement of an announcement or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a CDPR thing. I can imagine them doing that.
I don't even hate seeing that. It's just good to know that they're working on something and to know what they're working towards. Because for now, we're all still talking about Thronebreaker, and we're talking about this like it comes out next week every single time because people just keep on hyping it up, keep on talking about it, but we still don't know whether it's actually coming.
Mhm.
And when they give a date towards it, it will be really good for the popularity, as well as just talking about it instead of just this like small talk with, Thronebreaker is really cool, and let's go to the next subject because we don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
I don't know. And we didn't get an Easter event. I thought we were going to get an Easter. I mean, maybe there's still time. Easter isn't until Sunday. But wasn't there like a picture of a border with like flowers or something that got data mined or what have you? I definitely seen some sort of spring-esque border. See, now Swim looks like, see, he's doing his face.
What?
You go like this. Sometimes when we talk about things, and it makes me
Oh.
feel like you know things. But yeah, I would love to see an Easter event.
Sorry, I put on some chapstick just now, and I was just rubbing it in, Like that's
okay.
all.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, my bad. But yeah, no, an Easter event would be cool. But you would have thought they would have announced it by now if it was coming out on Sunday.
I don't think there will be an Easter event. They're working really hard on Thronebreaker at the moment, and also just some other small things. So I don't think they care as much about a small event as the big Thronebreaker thing that should happen as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's the right mentality to have, honestly.
Like those
I
small
want, like,
events are cool, but
My flower border. I don't know. I think like the small events. So one thing I think CDPR are not very good at is like serving bad news in like a poop sandwich. So like you have bad news, but you pair it with like 2 slices of good news,
Yeah.
so that people don't
On
notice
either
the
side.
filling.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like CDPR, they basically said like someone asked Berger, are we going to see a balance change? And he was just like, no. And you could be like, just no, or you could be like, no, but, we have this cool spring event or something. Like, you got to give them something good. Like, it could be like, no, but we'll be releasing a roadmap of what's coming next week. See, then you pair the bad news with the good news. The bad news becomes, it's still bad, but it seems less bad. And it's something that I feel like CDPR should get better at, because then we would be misled into thinking that everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys feel about the meta that we find ourselves in right now, in terms of if you think any decks in particular are overrated or underrated, or like I guess in general how you like or dislike the meta. Because like I said, my stance is that it's very stale, but pretty healthy, all things considered. The diversity of not just archetypes but like different playstyles is pretty good, and all the tier 1 decks have like, do take like a decent amount of skill to be able to pilot. I don't know. That might seem a lot weird to a lot of that might seem a little bit weird to a lot of people that haven't been playing Gwent a long time. But in the past, we've seen a lot of like tier 1 decks that had like one or two decks in tier 1 that were very, very kind of autopilot.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Like the meta is super balanced and all that, but it's
Yeah.
Resident Sleeper.
but like even Greatsword has an insanely high skill cap on the amount of the small differences you can make in playing your
Exactly.
Greatsword at the right moment, the ships at the right moment. But you always do the same thing. You play a Greatsword, you play the ship. You rest a Greatsword, you rest the ship. Like it's the same stuff over and over again, which makes it boring.
Yeah.
But like competitive wise and balance wise, it's great, right? Because every faction, Monsters is a little bit iffy, but almost every faction has a great deck, and Monster still has a good deck. It's just not that consistent. With Dagon That Wish, it just doesn't thin enough. So balance wise, it's great. Just play wise, it's a bit boring.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's resident sleeper, but at least it's healthy, you know? Like, we've seen worse metas, and I think it's overall alright, especially that every faction has at least something to play with. It's not as if, you know, with the dwarf meta and all, you just had to play a certain faction or a certain deck to, like, get somewhere. So overall, I'm alright. Like, it's just a bit resident sleeper, but it could be worse, you know?
I think it's alright. It's the same. Like, everyone is just like, you know, it's fine, but we've had it for 3 months. That's the only issue. Is we just want, like, I think if you play Gwent, you know, multiple hours a day, multiple days a week, at some point you're going to have played through, you know, most of the current meta decks, most of the faction decks, and like I find this an issue myself. It's like I'm making YouTube videos. I'm like, right, what deck can I do a video on that hasn't already been done in the last 3 months? And it's just there's not much that you can kind of do. You can redo decks with small changes. You know, you could play like Alchemy, for example, with Johnny and Wolfsbane, which I play sometimes because it's fun and it's a bit different and people don't expect it. But like, you know, you can make small changes to stuff like that just to kind of be more creative and try and, you know, make the game more interesting for yourself. But ultimately, like, these decks have become so refined that, you know, the decks that exist are at the peak of the kind of pyramid, and anything that you make is going to be lowering the strength of the deck.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, a lot of the meta has been fairly a lot of it has been the same for the last 3 months, but if you compare the meta nowadays with the meta that was there when we had to send in deck lists for the open, it's already fairly different. Like, Gwent's meta keeps evolving even though people are not, or there aren't any new cards getting printed. Greatswords was nothing when we sent in the deck list for the open, which was, 2 or 3 weeks ago? Yeah. And now Greatswords is all over the place and people start ticking against it and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just that the play style feels really boring, I'd say, more than the meta has been still for 3 months.
But do you think the Greatswords is, you know, popularized by the Open, for example? Like, do you think that the reason it's now meta is because it did well at Open? And I mean, we do have like reports from Gwent up and stuff that I think, you know, control the meta to a certain degree. Like, someone will find a niche deck, start playing that, and then they'll have a high win rate, and then it becomes, you know, more and more of a problem.
Greatswords was already becoming more popular before the Open. I remember watching JJ's stream after the Open and talking about the decks that people brought, and he was like losing his mind why people didn't bring Greatswords, even though it was 1 week before the actual meta and like everything was different then. So that Greatswords was already a thing. But I don't know. It's like, for example, Spice was more interesting, I'd say, and cards combined with cards like Asire and stuff, because just cards that do completely different things in different matchups is what makes it interesting. But like Greatswords, what I said is just play Greatsword, play ship. With Elf's Brewer, it's also you always play the Spy first, you always Cleaver, and then you play Elf, and more Elves, and more Elves, and more Elves.
That's
never
kind
interesting.
It's almost one of the issues of Gwent, though, because the game is like designed to be so incredibly consistent. You've got the 25 card deck, the 10 card to draw in the opening hand, and the huge degree of tutors compared to other card games. Like, the game, most competitive decks will play out very similarly every time, and there's definitely some that do more than others. But I mean, do you think this could actually be somewhat of a flaw in Gwent's design? Like, how would you see potentially shifting that direction? Because it definitely is worse in Gwent than other games.
Yeah, this is definitely something I'd like to see fixed, because they kind of tried doing it with Create, exactly. But Create wasn't really the solution that people were hoping for.
It really wasn't.
Yeah. But the thing they wanted to do was good, though. They wanted to make the game more interesting and have some more variables. The problem was just that the variables weren't controlled.
Yeah, exactly. And the Gwent is like such a techie game that like you can create a win condition just way too easily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, because if you compare watching tournaments now to watching tournaments over at Gwent Slam, like I always watch tournaments going on, especially on high level play, because I think it's the easiest way to improve. But I couldn't stand watching the Gwent Slam matches where it was all about you play Golden Weather, you get weather cleared, game is over. You play Golden Weather, the weather didn't get cleared, the game is over. Like, that's super boring to watch. You're just watching 10 minutes of something that's already like known what's going to happen. And Create stopped that, but Create made it less competitive, which is also not a good way to go. So they'll have to find something in between that solves both the variables, the watchability, and gameplay for Gwent.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's pretty hard to do, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tricky one.
I mean,
I would-
something. Oh, sorry.
I was
Something
gonna
I'd like to see. We're going.
No, go. What would you like
Okay.
to see? Tell me.
Sorry. So something I'd like to see is more cards like Monster's Nest. Cards that have variables, but not necessarily bad variables. Like Monster's Nest has options like Foglet, which is basically useless. You're never taking Foglet unless you want EBM. But if you have cards like, okay, Shoop is the other end of the spectrum. You can take a lot of options with Shoop, but it's too random. So something in between that gives you more options during the game that you can choose when you're playing against different decks or in different situations. But no variables, no stuff. Your opponent can play around it. You can play with it and just have it competitive. And I go at it.
I think those are good, but they're hard to get right because you remember we had old Doragari, and then it gave everyone Barbergazi, and then
Yeah, exactly.
that was not great. But I do think Monster's Nest is a kind of a well balanced card. I mean, my solution part of it would just be to increase deck size. I've said this like plenty of times, but I feel like making decks maybe 30 cards and not changing the number of gold and silvers, for example, would just make these hyper thinning strategies a little bit less consistent, and that would kind of free up design space and also force people to use more a broader variety of cards. Yeah. Which means that you don't always have all full deck, a deck of 12 to 14 point bronzes. You might occasionally get less successful bronzes, and I think that it would be more interesting. Like I've said before, that 30 cards, it means that you're not always playing the same game, because you were saying with great swords, you play your great sword, you play your thing, you play your res, and it's because you can very consistently get your great swords, you can very consistently get your boats, you can very consistently get your reses. But what if you had to put more cards in? What if your opening hand wasn't as consistent? I think you'd have to start to become more creative to be competitive, and I think that's good.
Creative.
I mean, that's good in that sense, but you also create the problem that when people draw all their golds and your opponent doesn't draw any, you have such a big advantage over your opponent because a lot of gold cards are actually synergizing with the strategies.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
example,
I mean, you've got the problem in the opposite direction, because games like Magic the Gathering and Eternal have really high deck sizes, and that means every time you draw a card, because of the high ratio, your card draw kind of doesn't balance out with itself, right? So even if you keep the ratios the same and increase the deck sizes, you're it's more stochastic, right? Because you draw and you're not reducing the odds of drawing the same thing again, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, maybe if they fix the mulligan, things would be better. Who knows?
And that's definitely something that needs to happen, but
Yeah.
It'll hopefully happen next pack. But speaking of create, Lurtz has found us a fantastic clip from Swim of some. I think it's from Swim of some sort of super
Kinda hurts
Donor.
when you're not drawing Decoy, Barclay, or Outlaw.
Boy,
When
so
most
what
of
happens?
the cards in your deck
Oh,
are
okay.
thinning
Wait, why
cards.
is there two of me?
I mean, I'm kind of thin to zero, right? Because
Simception,
all
by
three
the way.
cards in my deck are all thinning cards.
Okay, so
I
what
just
have you
didn't
done?
think
You
to the
played,
right
no,
zero.
they played Donor
That's all.
and discarded a priestess. So tell us what happened. I don't understand.
Oh,
Take the rings down here.
Oh, you're gonna play
it's
Donor.
this.
They played Svanrigga.
Right.
I'm being an idiot.
Yeah, no. Yeah. It's the easy create into
Scary.
Donar. You've never created just a casual 30-point Donar?
Oh, then you took his 26. Oh no.
I had something similar happen.
Split that.
just a sip afterwards. Yeah, easy game.
You gotta stay hydrated.
Yeah. No, I actually had something similar happen to me once. When I still ran Runestone with the Vesper faction and all, I got Donor in a greatsword matchup, stole his what was it, 20-point greatsword. It's not something that should happen. It's not something that should happen.
I mean, they solved this problem, right? They're just gonna remove create cards from ranked play, and this shouldn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
when Oceanmud was on the show, this was the thing he said. He really hated runestones because people could just get the counters. They just high roll the counters when they needed them, and that's kind of where people take issues. You're not running Donar, you're not going to be running him in your deck, but you're running the runestone, and occasionally you'll get Donar. Sometimes you'll get a Sigurdriffa, if you need her. It really depends. You might get a Svanrigga to try and draw into a specific card that you need and get rid of maybe a brick in your hand. And I think alchemy cards are actually. Wait, I think they're interesting. Actually, no, I don't think they're interesting. I think they're really boring, and I think they would be better in arena. I was gonna say I think they're interesting in arena because they're safe drafts, but I don't think they're that good in ranked.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with you on that. There's actually,
Oh boy,
oh,
here
no.
we go.
What? Okay, so something I wanted to ask you guys, and I'd be very curious on your opinions here. So probably the thing I think that we're looking forward to the most as a community is something Burza mentioned in his AMA, which is the faction identity project. Basically, they're going through each faction, they're fleshing out kind of underloved archetypes, and making it so that each faction has 3 distinctly different ways to play. I would love to hear your guys' opinions on kind of what you might be looking forward to the most in this regard, because you can definitely make predictions of like what kind of you expect to be buffed in that way, right? Some stuff that plays very different, like Cursed Dinner, for example. Ashlizzle, what do you think? I'm sorry, were you going for a record there?
No, I mean, I would love like to get some faction identity back, especially to like Skellige and all, since the Cursed Self Arm is basically dead. Like the Queen's Guard is dead. But how do you fix that? Because it all depends on graveyard hate mostly. Like
Yeah.
certain decks, but then you have to change like something that it appears like Nilfgaard is more and more about resurrections as well. So how do you change that? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to what they're coming up with basically. But
Yeah, I mean the way they phrased it's supposed to be like a very like major overhaul. For example, something like Skellige Discard, an archetype we haven't really seen pretty much in a competitive environment for a very long time. The old like pre-Midwinter Bran deck with like Harpooner and Warmonger, I wouldn't call that a discard deck. It used Bran and Warmonger for efficiencies, but it wasn't really a discard deck. We haven't really seen discard decks since the change to Clan Demon Pirate Captain, which was like what 5 or 6 months ago. Maybe a little longer actually.
Yeah, longer than that.
And it was something that represented a bit of an interesting play style, and there's definitely a lot of cards that feel kind of wasted supporting it right now. It'd be very cool to see that working again.
Yeah, I agree. Sure.
You miss the good old days of like people opening with warships and then you killing the warships, you play more warships, you discard everything.
A warship.
And whoever shoots their warships first in the mirror usually wins.
Yeah.
Losing the coin flip is winning the coin flip. It's great. I don't know, Dutchboy, what are you looking forward to the most? What are you thinking?
I think that
about anything?
I mean, like, I'm optimistic about what CDPR is doing. I think a lot of people are really negative in the sense that Gwent is dead. They aren't doing anything, but they're really trying to solve the problems. It's just that the problems are really hard to fix. It isn't like they can easily hijack ideas from other people since Gwent is so unique in their gameplay and the way the game works. But they aren't always looking for the right things to solve. I think it will be impossible to make 15 viable decks tier 1 or tier 2. If you're already looking at this meta and you have like 4 viable decks at least, that's already really good. In a card game to have more than like 2 tier 1 decks, it's already crazy. Because balancing 15 decks through each other and all the matchups and on all the different interactions is basically impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, like, Gwent has shown that it's changing a lot, and even when there hasn't been any new cards or new patches, the game is still developing itself. It's not only with the Greatswords example this time, but also with if you remember the Nova Brand deck. Everyone was playing the Nova Brand deck, and Skellige was kind of discarded. It was an okay faction to play, but it wasn't that amazing. And then suddenly the full-on Cursed Marauder deck came up, and it was actually becoming a top-tier faction again at the end of the last 2 weeks of that patch, even though the patch has been live for 2 months. But like I have many different feelings for Gwent at the moment. Like, it's interesting in its gameplay, but it still has problems. But solving these problems are really hard. 'Cause, like, we've been talking about coinflip for a year or more now, and they tried fixing it with for the open, at least, with a fixed coinflip, which I also don't really like because it forces people to play. Like, you always play Hansel on red, you always see proof on red, and like the gameplay is just very boring to play. It's never interesting because you can always just execute your own game plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but every single solution people have come up with isn't really the best solution, because there's always some kind of problem with it. The one solution makes dry passing too good, another which gives you arena gameplay of one round Gwent, which is basically
which is bad. That's
yeah,
very
that's
bad.
that's worse.
Yes,
like they
absolutely.
with the change to summoning circle was actually really good for the game, enabling you to dry pass more often against deck if you're playing an engine deck. Because before that, it was so that if you were playing an engine deck and you didn't play Summoning Circle and Spy, or didn't draw both of them, you couldn't dry pass, and you would just get blown out because you had to set up these engines, and your opponent had just good point plays, and you would just not be able to keep up with your opponent for the beginning at least. And they solved that kind of with only having one Spy per game. So the game is actually improving, but there are still a lot of problems that need to be fixed, but are really, really hard to fix.
Yeah.
I think that's true. We've talked about, the coin flip a lot and how to fix that, or things like create and how to fix that. And you kind of end up going around in circles a lot. And a lot of the suggestions, like everyone has a suggestion, and all of the suggestions, like you can see merit in them, and they also have a flaw. And the problem is, in a competitive environment, if solution is abusable, you can guarantee that on Pro Ladder people will be like abusing that solution. If this proposed thing about initiative, where certain leaders are always on blue coin, or like they have like rankings, and like if they match up in certain ways, that determines the coin flip. If there's a way that people can abuse that, they will. Like it's just kind of how it is. So I don't know. But then people already abuse the coin flip, right? There's like Brewer coin flip abuse. So
I mean, card game metas like throughout the history of time are just about like finding the best thing to abuse. I mean, that's inescapable, I think.
Yeah.
So you think it's better just to have a solution than no solution, I guess?
Yeah.
Or at least to try a solution. If it doesn't work out. The problem is, though, with CDPR, if it doesn't work out, we'll be stuck with it for 3 months. So you gotta kind of be a bit careful.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. One thing to talk about we haven't actually mentioned is we had a qualifier this weekend for the Gwent Challenger. So now we know all 8 participants for the Gwent Challenger, because I apologize. Who's actually a player for Topdeck won. So I'm just going to kind of shamelessly promote Topdeck here. So he won. And that means we know who's going to be at Challenger. Do you guys have predictions for who you think is going to win this Challenger? Considering the meta, it looks like it's not changing. Who do you think is strongest in the current meta, I guess is the question.
I know who's going to win the shit talk game. Tilbot is like Tilbot's level is insane. Holy moly.
Yeah, no, there really just is no competing with him on that front.
It's actually crazy.
But he's reached the level where he has like fans as well on Twitter that are like, and they shit talk for him. Like he can be at an event, and he's got his little.
He doesn't even have to do it anymore.
Oh, I thought that was just him on a Twitter roll.
Yeah, I thought the same. But it was apparently some kind of fanboy.
No, it's a fanboy.
It's amazing.
Still God or something, right?
Yeah, tell God _. So that's the thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't know who's gonna win. Topdeck's gonna win, I believe. Colamon or I Apologize got it, 100%. I'm not just saying that because this is Topdecked,
I'm pretty excited to see I Apologize at 11. Are we gonna keep calling him that? Is he I Apologize or is he Cameron Cook? I don't know.
Well, Cameron Cook's his actual name, but his Gwent name is I Apologize.
I just told you guys his real name. Sorry.
Let's talk him on the interwebs.
It's okay. It's not like they reveal his name at Challenger. Like we definitely don't know. Who Frederick is. I don't know.
I'm actually pretty excited for him. He's I think he's a great player. He's always had like great standings. I've talked with him several times about the game, and I'm pretty excited to see him compete.
I think it'll be fun. I'm excited.
It should be a blast.
Even with like the current state of the meta and it not necessarily changing. Like last Challenger was such a big event, and there was all sorts of really cool things going on with that, and it'll be super exciting, I think, to see what's going on in the salt mines, and I can't wait to watch it. I think it's going to be good. I'm going to be positive for this one, and Topdeck's going to win.
Yes.
I also can't wait to watch it. It should be a blast.
I mean, I think tournaments, even though the meta is still tournament meta, is still a whole other thing. Because if the meta is really still, it means that people are really likely to bring certain decks, which can be targeted sometimes. Like decks like Henselton or Redcoin aren't really that targetable. They're just good in almost any matchup. Skellige, for example, is really targetable with the Graveyard Hate or I don't know, like Scorch Effect against Greatswords.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff can be
Necromancy.
interesting. And you cannot do that on ladder because you just cannot target that hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Targeting
Anyway,
is really risky, though. I was going to say, like, Super
Yeah,
JJ
it
always
is.
targets, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Like, it didn't work in the first Challenger, and it did work for him, and I think it was the Open where he targeted Consume, so...
Yeah,
It's
I guess we'll wait and
hilarious
see.
when it works.
absolutely.
Anyway,
And-
Swim.
But I mean, the winner of the second challenger, Freddie, was also doing a targeting strategy as well. So
Yeah, he was targeting spies, wasn't he?
yeah, that's correct. Which is something that a lot of people said wasn't possible, and some people
I mean,
still
yeah.
say that.
And that was when he was playing for Topdeck.
Oh, God.
Jeez.
Okay, so at this point, we should
Like-
be able to take it to viewer questions. So if any of you guys have any questions for us specifically or us as a group at large to answer, you go ahead and type it in chat at Topdeck Gwent with your query and question. As always, if Ashlizzle or Dutchboy, you guys had anything else you wanted to talk about, just pretend you saw a viewer ask the question in chat.
Someone's asking about on the next Gwent Open. That is meant to like the Gentleman, not Gentleman. I guess it's Topdeck Open now. Soon, TM. Soon, I guess is. It's just like timetabling is tricky, not clashing with other events. So like the qualifiers and that sort of thing. Soon TM is the answer for that question.
Mhm.
When is Coin Clash? Also soon TM. That you also get a soon TM there. Congratulations. I feel like Berger at this point.
Oh, here we go.
Wow.
What does Sarah's Fearless need to become a relevant card? Sarah's Fearless will become a relevant card in the next patch.
That's a statement.
Ooh.
You're gonna get quoted on
I hope
Reddit now.
so. Yeah.
Ballsy,
So just
ballsy.
like fuck it, they quote me anyway. Let's see. I don't know. I think Cyrus is a really interesting card. The problem is that she is very removable. She has 6 points, and apparently discarding cards doesn't actually work as a like if you discard from hand, that doesn't trigger. This is something I heard. I haven't actually experimented with her.
Man,
So
I
if you
haven't
play
played a single game with the card.
if you play her and then discard a card by just like dragging it from your hand into the graveyard, it doesn't
like
do
that.
anything.
The only thing I've ever seen with like Fearless was that not in the play of the month or something with that guy with the Iris your demons or something, the lesser demons, and just discarding a card and then spawning it again. But how do you pull that off? But that was a sick play. I remember that from
Hmm.
that was a sick play.
I mean, like, Gwent immunity needs to come back, I guess, to make it good. Or the gold immunity, I mean.
Gwent immunity. I wish I
Yeah,
had thought
words hard.
of
Can we
that.
talk Dutch again? That's way easier.
And truth.
Someone asked what the LB in Lbdutchboy stands for. It's like
So, we're
Liam.
gonna have another name
something.
reveal. My name is Liam Brouwer.
Oh, Brouwer. I thought your surname was Broover.
Hans
First of all, and I was like,
No,
that's
no,
not
no,
right.
no, no. It's a W.
Liam
Please note
Broover,
the
yeah.
change. I'm not related to Broover.
Oh,
Oh, see, I thought because we use a lowercase L, so it looks a bit like IB Dutch Boy. I thought it was like Ik Ben Dutch Boy, and I was like, oh, he's like, that's what it stands for. That's what I decided.
Caveman talk. I be Dutch boy.
IB.
I don't.
Good
I
point. Maybe if I become a rapper or something, I could do that.
Yeah, dude.
Dab on cue, you know.
oh hell yes. Just make a rap with Burza. Easy. I can see it happen.
Collab. Actually,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need more,
nice
like,
collab.
I don't know, like diss tracks in this community.
Yeah.
So like, you got to write a diss track about Berja, and then he'll write
I
one
don't know, Tailbot.
about you. Oh,
Yeah,
about
Tailbot.
Tailbot. Oh, he would have to respond.
Yeah, we'd have
exactly.
a winner.
Oh, that would be good.
All right, well,
Oh.
chat, get on it. We need a Gwent diss track to start some beef because our drama clearly isn't good enough.
It's true.
I mean, now that JJ Passak's been banned, like what we don't really even have drama anymore. We need more like I don't know BM people. Swim, be more BM.
No,
No.
I wouldn't do that. I'd
No.
get banned.
Yeah.
Questions. Should a seer be able to put timed out spies? What is a timed out spy?
A spy that has already been used, and then
Spy
when you
that's
draw it again,
already-
it does nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like
Yeah, that's
the card advantage spies. I
Yeah.
see what they mean.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, I don't see it as like too large of an advantage. It's a very niche opportunity where you can actually put a spy back and then they draw it, and then even then, it's not really a negative 13. They just lose out on a card opportunity.
Mm.
I don't know,
Like-
like. Go ahead.
Oh,
I was going to say the thing is people try and put dead cards back in your opponent's deck anyway. So if they don't put the spy back in, they'll put something else in that's equally useless, or like, well, not equally useless, but still a dead card. So it's the same sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like really bad cards you can put in. I don't really see it as a problem. I mean, it's a very, very niche play, and when it happens, it's kind of funny.
I mean, I'd actually like to see spies not go to the graveyard. I think that's actually something really annoying in the game at the moment, in that whenever you assire back a spy and your opponent has ADC, the game is immediately over, kinda.
Yeah,
Like you just lose card advantage by doing that.
It does really hurt them when they have 80s.
Yeah, and that's kind of crazy. That as well as with the like if you're mulliganing in, and almost every deck has like almost every mulligan deck sends down a lot. You're basically flipping coins on if you draw it in the right moment or not, and you lose the game. Plus, something that I actually really dislike about it being in the graveyard is that whenever you're playing like Dagon, Deathwish, or any monster deck in general, you can just drop in a ghoul and not care about deck building or anything that synergizes with it, because you can always just eat the spy anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that it goes to the graveyard now. Like I kind of don't understand why that was added. I guess to stop people decoying it, the timer was added, but then they could have still left it doomed. I'm not really sure why they removed that.
I mean,
It's also
It's
got the
good.
munchies.
it's good to not have many cards doomed, because you can actually keep track of the cards without having a tracker. Like if you have these doomed cards, they're really hard to keep track of in the game. But with the spies now, you can just go to your graveyard, see if he has played the spy or not, and go on with your life. You don't have to keep mentally notes of all the cards that have been played.
That's fair. I feel like you would remember that they played a spy because of
Yeah, I
how
mean, like,
different.
yeah, with spy you would remember, but if this would happen with a lot of cards, it's gonna get hard.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, trackers are allowed in Gwent, so I guess it's not something most people, at least most PC players, I would say, ever really
Yeah.
think about.
Xbox players are crying right now. As long as it
Oh,
like,
call the Xbox players, they're crying.
aw. I mean, in the open as well, like you have to suddenly play without a tracker, and that's actually kind of really hard to do. Like you have to you already with a tracker, you have to take mental note of so many different things, and now you also have to keep all the cards in mind, which is actually becoming a real hard thing to do, and it's a lot.
I think that's fair to say. One last question before we wrap it up is if you could add one mechanic to the game
Ooh,
to shake it up, like reveal, what would it be?
that is a great question.
I would have cards that have effects depending on the row that they're played on. I feel like that gives rows identity, and it also makes things a little bit interesting. If you have cards where if you play them in certain rows, you get certain perks. It may encourage your more movement
That's
strategies.
a really
It may
cool idea.
Yeah, that's
encourage and it could be a card that like does A if you place it on the front row and B if you place it on the back row. So then the card has choice involved. Because a lot of cards we have now have
Oh,
choices, and in terms of like I think like Bone Talisman, for example, you get a choice. Mandrake, you get a choice. Like you could have cards where they do different things if they're on the front or the back row, and then nothing if they're on the middle row. And then it also means that you have to be careful about filling rows, and it means that cards like Igni and stuff that affect rows gain value, because if you have advantages into playing into certain rows, then it encourages you to stack and so on and so forth. I think that would be cool.
I think that's a fantastic idea. In addition to that, you could also have it so that certain engines, for example, could be placed on a certain row to like lose strength and gain armor or something like that. So if you anticipate removal, you can play it for less value but more survivability. Something like that. I mean, I think that can add like a real like dimensionality to kind of engine cards and removal.
Or cards that have a benefit, to being played proactively. Like you can choose to play them on one row to play them proactive, and one row to play them reactive. So then if you lose the coin flip, you're not stuck with a reactive card that you have a disadvantage for. Like if you have a Viper Witcher, for example, playing it at first is just rubbish. And the solution at the moment is slave drivers. But if you don't have that solution, it would be cool if maybe the Viper Witcher, if you play him on the back row, he boosts based on your alchemy cards. And if you play him on the front row, he deals damage based on your alchemy cards. Or something like that, such that there's inherent value to different rows.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool idea, honestly. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Apparently, this is your idea, according to chat, because people can't independently come up with similar things.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
did
Sven.
you just net deck my idea, Jaggerous?
I just took your idea, just like because everything that Swim's ever thought is exclusive to Swim. I don't know if you know that about Gwent, you guys.
People are too obsessed with like who said what first. It's honestly not like
It's a cool idea. Like,
there have been more people than just us two who have proposed basically exactly that.
don't be silly. This is a top deck idea.
Oh.
Exclusive.
I don't know, Ashlizzle, Dutchboy. What do you guys think in terms of like mechanics you would add?
I actually really like that idea Jaggers just proposed, which was net deck from Swim. I actually really
Wait,
like
are
it.
you net decking Jaggerous is
Yeah, but I decked it Swim.
Wait, but you have to
net deck
change one
Jaggerous,
word so
net
that you can
decking
call it your
Swim.
own idea. You just have to change one word.
Change
Just
one
change one
word.
word, and it's your deck.
Yes, exactly. No, I actually really like it. I would love to see Real Identity come back a bit. I think it was very unique to Gwent. I just actually miss it a bit. But
That's
mechanic-wise, yeah.
Any mechanics you want or ideas that you have that we definitely aren't going to trademark as top deck ideas?
I mean, there are multiple ideas out there that are kind of fun. I kind of like the rider ideas that start at the back and then they go forward, and every time they go forward a bunch, they do something
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
I really like that idea, who I net deck from someone at Reddit.
You're not even gonna give them credit.
I don't know who it is. You check out every Reddit day.
What a shame.
Okay, but like, row identity is something that's very important, and something I'd like to see is less coin flip abuse the high tempo type of cards, because like cards like Dumb Banner, even like the Mangonels, as well as like the Cleaver combo, obviously, are the things that make the combo coin flip even worse. So I would love them to step away from that, or give other decks an opportunity to start off with a high tempo play as well. Because now you're just playing Greatswords, and Greatsword has this 15-point tempo play, let's say, and after that they don't do anything. As well as with the Dagon Deathwish, this was actually something that I struggled with when I was playtesting against Brewer Nova. If they warden through you, you don't have any tempo plays at all in the first turn or two. You have to develop an Arcaspore, they spy you, they Brewer you, you're done.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, great.
Great.
Maybe
Brewer player, by the way.
what if we just make Gwent a single player game? And
Yes,
just
great
make the
idea.
bots have all the shitty, unlucky stuff, and you have all the cleavers and the one coin flips and everything.
Thronebreaker, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be so good. They could literally just make Thronebreaker a coin flip winning simulator.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes so much sense.
The other thing you could do is you could have cards that are either dependent upon, like they have different effects dependent on either like how many cards your opponent has on the board or how many cards you have on the board, such that they have different benefits from being played early versus late. And it would encourage you in certain situations to go for a long round. It would make passing kind of more interesting, because it might be like, oh, this guy's got 8 cards. If he gets to 10, he's going to play this card that synergizes with 10. So if I pass
Get
now,
the city's blessing.
you kind of can't do that and stuff. And I think there are a lot of interesting things you could do with cards that aren't they don't have one effect. They have kind of variable effects depending on situations. And I think it would add an extra level of complexity to the game, which would be really cool.
Yeah, it could be cool. It could also be really hard to balance, I'd say, because Moonlight kind of has that effect right now, right?
That's true if you play Moonlight
whether you want
versus
the Boon or the Hazard, but it kind of doesn't as well, because you're already... Like, you know what you're going to do with the Moonlight once you put it in your deck. It's only some fringe scenarios where you can choose to, like... If you top deck a Moonlight in the end, you can actually do it on your opponent, but almost always you just do the same thing, and it doesn't really matter, even though it has 2 options.
Yeah, that's true. It's a tricky one to kind of get right, but I think more cards with more variation in what they do would be interesting. The only problem is, like you say, often when you put it in for a binary reason, and then occasionally get benefit from the secondary effect.
Yeah, what Swim just said, like Swim, you notice like real quickly, like the city's blessing. That would be pretty great having, but like I'm not very experienced in MTG. I just tried it out like once. I'm a very noob, but I know what the city's blessing is, and that would be pretty cool to
Can
have
you
something similar.
Please explain.
Swim, explain, please. I know it's like something.
It's a keyword that if you ever get 10 dudes on the thing, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the thing, and some keywords make your dudes do better things.
Thanks.
How was that?
Yeah. Okay. I understand
neat.
fully. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
No,
I
it's cool.
actually, yeah.
So would you have it last between rounds in Gwent? But then of course you're gonna get 10 units on the board at some point. Unless
Yeah.
unless you have like 3 medium length rounds.
That would be great. Some kind of quest, right?
Yeah.
Quest.
Yeah, like the Hearthstone mechanic, just putting quests.
Just like if you play like
So
if you play 5 elves at once, like some magical 6 strength elf gets pulled out of your deck or something. That would be such a great quest.
I would
Never
love
seen
to
that
see.
before.
I would love to see some kind of quest mechanic in Gwent. It might be kind of tricky to balance and design for though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be
But-
cool though.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of like the concept, and I don't know. You can make quests in a lot of different ways. They don't actually have to be like literal quests, like in Hearthstone where you have the quest card. You could have something like Ceres. I think that the vanilla Ceres card is representing like a mechanic in Gwent that exists and can be designed into other cards, but is kind of criminally underutilized. Which is like every time so and so happens, put a counter on this. When counter reaches X, do Y. Right, and that's a really that is basically a quest, right? That is what a quest is. You know, you have to run Brand to get into the graveyard, unless you're a Johnny player. And there's, I don't know, there's a lot of like depth and just like diversity to that kind of concept. I'd really like to see that being utilized further. But anyway, I think that's going to be all the time we have for this help, Jaggerous, say it.
Should I just start speaking Dutch again?
Yes.
Oh yes.
I can actually
So thanks everyone for watching, and if you enjoyed the show, then that's good. We have Ashlizzle and Dutchboy. Do you have any shout outs or things you want to mention? I think Ashlizzle is about to stream, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a go-up stream, like not Gwen today, unfortunately.
Not
But I
Gwen.
want to give a shout out to all my Skellige players. My dudes will survive.
People what play Skellige. Ashlizzle is not going to play Skellige. That's basically what you said.
No. I'm always gonna play Skellige. I'm always gonna find a way. I actually played Dutchboy, your deck, to Grandmaster. So
Oh,
it's
cool.
pretty neat. Yeah.
Nice. I actually wouldn't even just like try to play it anymore because I think it's shit now. But it's
Actually,
really good that
it's
you made
pretty good.
Grandmaster with it.
I think it's really good. I got like top 50 with it like for a few
Oh,
days.
nice.
Pretty neat,
job.
yeah.
I
it
mean,
a-
like,
Great
That's
subs
something.
or veterans or what kind of deck
Oh,
is it?
veterans.
Veterans. Yeah.
I think veterans are really cool. They're just not being played. But it also has the coin flip problem, right? Because the first deck, the first deck that was well known at least, didn't play a spy and had low tempo plays to begin with. So you would always get screwed by the Brewer shenanigans that would always happen
Yeah.
to you. But
But
with the
like,
it's a little better.
I find that Brewer into the one without a spy isn't that bad because Brewer has no big tempo finishing plays, so you just force out round 1 even if you go down 2 cards, bleed in round 2, and then if you have things like Restore and a big res, especially if you've targeted one of them with Mandrake, you can usually beat them even if you're like 2 cards down. That's how, like, and unless it's like Nova Brewer or
You can-
Shoop Brewer.
I've
Sure.
tested I mean, the deck is actually good. Don't it's
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good deck.
I've played with it like to 4.2k ish or something, and like at a 80% win rate. It's actually
Yeah, it's
really
insane.
I mean, I got
But-
GM last season with veterans.
good.
so-
Yeah, don't trash talk Shoop. Shoop is good.
I'll never trash talk shoot. Never.
But yeah, like as long as you go only 1 card down, it's actually doable. But not having the spy makes it harder to do because if you play the second round too long, you're going down 2 cards, and
Yeah,
-2
true.
in the last round is basically always GG.
Yeah.
Except if
Yeah.
you're playing Consume, because Consume is fun.
Any shout outs, Dutchboy?
I mean, thank you for having me. That's for sure. That's certain to be said. And yeah, just thanks to my team, my parents, and all the same stuff again. Like I'm getting used to
God.
this. I mean, I was on the Commanders One podcast with MacBird as well yesterday, and I had to do the same thing over and over again. So okay, teammates, thank you. Thank you for Team Artuso once again for helping me for the Gwent Open preparation. Thank you for having me, and thank you to my family.
Hey,
All right.
you got it down. Swim, anything you want to say?
Mom, I'm on TV.
Mom, get the camera.
Get the camera.
Okay. Well, I guess I have to shout out someone in the chat as I was doing. I'm going to shout out Zarthisius because he never sees any play, but he exists in our chat. So, it has a special place in our heart. But beyond that, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's special Dutch edition of Topdecked, the Topdeck talk show. And we'll be back next week, 10 p.m. CEST, Thursday. Thanks for watching. Tot ziens.
10 p.m.
Scenes.
Oh yeah, that is when we do.